Hey everyone, I'm Elliot Rothstein with theTUNDRA News and the host of Collegiate Tailgate Summer with the CEO. Today, it's a pleasure to welcome our guest Jorge Barragan, founder and CEO of The PICKLR, the leading indoor pickleball facilities franchisor. Hey George, thank you for joining us today. It's great to have you with us. How's your Monday going so far?
Elliot, not too bad. People will never know what it took for us to get this working just seconds ago. But I'm happy to be on. Mondays are always exciting to start off the week right. So I'm just happy to be here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And my pleasure to be interviewing one of the leaders in the upcoming pickleball space. And why don't we just sort of start by talking a little bit how you found pickleball, how you found it to be a sport and a community you wanted to be a bigger part of. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the Pickler itself.
Yeah, great question. So, I grew up playing lots of sports, never anything related with a racket or any paddle sports. Um, but as I got older and joined a lot of these tech companies, a lot of people like to play ping pong. So ping pong was the first sport I was introduced to. I fell in love with it, and so naturally, I felt like my skill set could translate to pickleball. And I got invited one time by a couple of friends when I worked at a tech company called Pluralsight to go play. And I thought it was such a funny sport, with a funny name, and it still had that stigma that this was only for old people. And so that was my first introduction. We all have that story where you got beat by a 65-year-old couple. My first, pickle, they had me running left and right. So, that's how I was quickly introduced to the game.
Mhm. Awesome. Yeah, I remember I played tennis in high school and I was always like all right at tennis and I picked up pickleball and I went playing with all my tennis friends and I would whoop their butts. But yeah, I had the exact same experience. I showed up to an actual like competitive gym for the first time and there were two like 60-year-old dudes and me and like my like fellow tennis captain were like, "Oh, we got this." And no, we just got kind of fully smoked right from the gate. Um, but yeah, at what was there a point where you realized I could turn this into more of a business venture type of deal, or was it as soon as you
Yeah.
started, was it sort of like there's potential here?
No, it wasn't even a thought. So I think it clicked for me. So we continued to play outside. I would join every once in a while to go play. There was a local park that was just a couple of minutes away from the office. But I think for me, when it finally clicked, we were at a rec center, same parking lot as the pickleball courts, and there was like 50 of us waiting to get on the pickleball court.
Mhm.
And I thought to myself, like, what? And this was in 2016. In 2016 in
Yeah.
Utah, 50 of us waiting to get on the court. People had their paddles out, and I could just not comprehend why we we would all be waiting to get on the court just to play this game.
Mhm.
Um, and it wasn't until I saw a couple of young kids, like they had to have been your age, Elliot, that they must have had a tennis background, but they were hitting the ball hard. They were jumping high to hit the ball, and it immediately clicked in my head that no one was representing the game the right way. It still had the stigma that it was old for old people, and at the time, for those that are the OGs of pickleball, they'll remember the Z5. The Z5 was kind of the top notch paddle out there at the time, and it sounded like you were hitting with a frying pan. It was so loud. The design was, and again, I don't want to talk bad, but it wasn't great. And so I thought to myself, I feel like I could come out with a paddle that's cheaper, that looks better, that performs better. And so the juices started flowing in regards to, hey, I love this game. I started to fall in love with it. I started to see this trend happening where, there was a lot of old people playing it, but the millennials are us old guys now starting to pick up the sport. And immediately thought, there was a pickleball venture opportunity there, and that was kind of my first first business venture. I launched it in 2019 with a buddy of mine, and we were just doing Instagram ads, selling 100 paddles a month. Um, I decided to take it a little bit more serious. And at the end of 2019, I redesigned it. I went with a raw carbon fiber, paddle that was going to be really high end performance. And if I sent my order to China. If you remember what happened in December of 2019, that's when COVID hit, and all communication ended with the manufacturer. And I didn't hear from them for 10 months, and that it felt like all my dreams were dead at that point, because of nothing was being produced at that time. And I feel like I had lost a lot of momentum.
Mhm. Yeah, well, I'm glad the pickleball dream didn't completely die. But, your foray into paddles, is that something you guys are still big on, or was that sort of the manufacturing end? Is it that at the point where you were like, "Maybe we should focus on, making facilities, providing, like, I don't know, some supply for just the demand for people that wanted to play, not just
Yeah.
the demand for, like, a better paddle product?"
Yeah. Well, great question. And I'm still an absolute nerd when it comes to paddles. And, when the new Yola paddle came out, I bought every single, line and design, because I love the way that technology innovates. But quite honestly, so COVID year had the best year I had had in my life, financially. Had a great job. I had just gone through a company. I went through an IPO, and then moved to a company. I went through an acquisition, and I introduced my friend to this company I was working. They're an aggregator. They come in, lift up your e-commerce, your Amazon presence, your brand, and they come in and buy controlling, the controlling investment of the company. And that transaction went through. It was awesome. I had just gone through another acquisition, and the CFO came from the other company and said, "Who's this Jorge Barragan guy? He's making way too much money." And they let me go. And that was in December of 2020. And I had always wanted to be an entrepreneur. My
Mhm,
father, growing up, we would go. My father originated from Mexico, and we'd go to Mexico, and he built apartments out there for, that he rents out. And we helped him carry cement. We helped him carry brick. When I was in fourth grade, he bought a little tortilla company. And I was packing up tortillas in the fourth grade. My summer was spent doing that. All my summers were spent doing landscaping jobs. And so my dad always just had this entrepreneur spirit. And in my senior year, he decided to go full in on being an entrepreneur, and launch his passion had always been mechanic and tires. So he opened up his own shop. And for me, that was an inspiration, just to see, at was it 3 years ago, at 32, my dad at that point had been doing it for almost 15 years. And I just reflected on all the entrepreneurship opportunities I had growing up. And I said, I never want to work for anyone again. And I took a whole month to think of a concept. And I was reminded of that time in Farmington, Utah, that rec center where all of us were waiting to play on these makeshift courts. We'd get kicked off by volleyball and basketball all the time. We were never a priority. And I was like, why is there not indoor facilities that facilitate everything pickleball? And that's where idea came up. I called my best friend Austin, and I said, "Hey, I have this idea." And he's like, "I'm in." I'm like, "Well, dude, let me tell you what it is." He's like, "No, whatever it is, I'm in." So he was in. I finally was able to tell him about doing an indoor facility. We do leagues and tournaments and clinics and court reservations, and people can come and not have to wait in lines. Um, a month later after that, we signed our first lease, and then 3 months after that, we opened our first facility in Ogden, Utah, and the rest is history. No, there's a lot that happened between it, but that's kind of how things happened.
Yeah, awesome. Congrats on, like, the stellar growth out the gate. Like, so far since you started, like, going into the business side of pickleball in, like, 2018, 2019, pretty much everything you touch is gold, you know? And obviously it's like the sort of like the perfect right as the wave hit, you had like
Right place at the right time.
you caught on to the demand at the perfect time. And as we're seeing like year after year, it's almost like another year, another doubling of the pickleball masses in America. But at some point, the growth is going to at least plateau a little bit, right? The regression of is there any, I don't know, like urgency to want to set up the supply, set up enough courts so that at the time hits when, it sort of starts to plateau, the Pickler is there and they've set up the courts and they've got that covered.
Uh, 100%. Man, Ellie, you're coming with the fire questions today. No, it's there was a lot of urgency because when we opened doors in April 2021, prior to that, because we post content of what we were doing, we kind of let the world know that, hey, like this is the future of pickleball. And I'd have people flying from Florida and Arizona and Seattle. I mean, I had people taking road trips and going home and making, rerouting their trips just to come see the facility. I had people just coming in and saying, "What are you doing?" I remember one of the founders of another franchisee out there. He came and forced his way to meet with us because he wanted to know what we were doing. And at that point, I had said, if I'm having this much interest in what we're doing, and you're seeing facilities starting to pop up, people are starting to think of this, right? And so my first thought is I got to raise money. I got to raise money. We got a lucky break 2 months in. We're using Venmo Business to take a lot of payments, and Venmo Business and PayPal headquarters in New York. They started seeing all these transactions coming in, and they wanted to know what is this pickleball thing and this Pickler thing that's popping off. And they ran a story on us, and they asked me where I thought the Pickler could be in 5 years, and I fully believed at the time that we could dot the country. So we raised funds to do the next 4 facilities, but people kept always asking us. My inbox probably had 75, from Instagram to LinkedIn to emails. Hey, I want to franchise this. I want to franchise this, and zero experience in that. And so again, I knew that in order to do that, I'd always heard how expensive franchising was, the kind of team it would take, the scalability and processes that need to take place. And so we raised our Series A. We did a friends and family one, and then raised our Series A. And in the last year, I don't know, 14 months, we've hired around 80 people to support the franchise system, from our exec team to operations to marketing, to our Go team that goes out and helps them, implement processes. And to this date, we've sold around 311 franchises with, a lot of sweat and tears. But I told myself that 2024 year was, if I didn't have funding, a brand, marketing, and scalability, this was the year that companies got left behind if you weren't prepared for this massive growth.
Right. Yeah. And as you were talking about like expanding, do you guys have facilities in all 50 of the states so far?
Not yet. So we've sold in 36 states so far. We just opened our 10th facility this last weekend in Blaine, Minnesota. So our 10th facility was just opened. Starting Q3, we will open a facility a week. So,
Oh,
uh, so when you start to think about what it takes to support as a franchisor the franchisee, I mean, for us to hire that many people before we even had that many facilities open, we knew the trajectory we were on. And to your point, there is a point where it plateaus, right? I still don't believe we're close because most of the United States is still underserved with pickleball courts. And then you also got to remember of the national or the international presence and what that's going to do to pickleball. We talk. I mean, we are talking to groups in Canada, in Australia, in Japan, in Mexico, in Colombia, Brazil, you name it. When the rest of the world catches on, and they are where we were at 3 years ago, but that is the next mega wave of pickleball, right? That's how we get to the Olympics. That's how we get TV
yeah.
contracts and deals, right? We already see players starting to get paid. but that international presence is what's going to elevate and grow the game of pickleball.
Yeah, and yeah, it's interesting you mentioned, Japan, as, like, one of the only, like, countries in Asia that you guys have sort of, like, looked at because I know it's come out recently that China's taking the
China.
sport really seriously, and they're focusing on it, as you said, as a potential, like, sport in upcoming Olympics. Do you think there might be any, I don't know, sort of popularity that could be drawn out from a business standpoint of having, the American pickleball scene dominating right now, but we're inevitably gonna see China really, really rise up and,
Yeah.
they're gonna have their own Pickler down there, and that could almost be like, a little rivalry between, I don't know,
Yeah.
the 2 leading pickleball countries, yeah. Mhm,
Well, and I think, I mean, number one, competition is always great for everyone, right? It raises all tides, and I think for me, the biggest thing was, you always said you be the first one or be the one that does it better, and we're trying to be both, right?
yeah,
And I think for us, that was we knew that we were going to be the first ones because at the time when we franchised, we had 7 facilities open. Nobody else in the franchise space had done that, right? So we understood at that point scalability. We had another facility in another state, and so we understood what it took to operate that many locations. Then after that, it was really hiring the right people with the right experience. We hire top level execs in the franchisor space that have done this. They've been through IPOs, they've been through exits, they have worked for the 1,000 unit franchisor. They know the scalability, operations, and processes, right?
mhm,
And so that's where I think we differentiate ourselves is we were pickleball people first, and then we
mhm,
brought in the right experience, and now we want to be synonymous with pickleball. So our partnership deals, we just got signed in a massive deal with Pickleball Inc., which they own the PPA, Pickleball Central. They, the UPAA, the new governing body of pickleball. They are on our cap table, right? We work hand in hand with them because they understand the indoor space is where the amateurs are going to play, not by the hundreds, but by the thousands. And then when you replicate that all across the country, the distribution channels that we're going to have with the Pickler are going to be massive. And that's why we are known as a franchisor of indoor facilities, but we have other pickleball companies that we've created using our distribution of the Pickler, which we're very excited about.
mhm. And yeah, and as an indoor facility space, do you guys have any plans to maybe, I don't know, construct like outdoor facilities? I mean, especially in, if you're expanding like to other countries where much, warmer climates, um, yeah, even as you were saying, like places in South America, I'm even thinking
Yeah,
like being as, they're seeing as, they're more compacted than a lot of like American city suburbs. And they do have more like a community vibe to them with like an outdoor space, sort of like almost like a pickup like basketball park. Would the
yeah.
Pickler sort of be able to, I don't know, set up that sort of dynamic in places where it would
Uh,
make sense?
100%, 100%, and I think that's one of the great things about our company is we're always looking for the trends. What do people want? I don't know if you saw our announcement with the Utah Black Diamonds, but we are doing an indoor outdoor facility with them, right? So some of the courts will be covered, but it'll be outdoor. Some of them will just be completely outdoor, and then we'll have indoor courts, right? So I think yes, the answer is yes. We're going to be nimble, and especially like look at the end of the day. Um, do I love playing pickleball on a perfect spring day? 100%.
Mhm.
But it gets above 75, 78 degrees with a little bit more than 5 mile an hour wind, and I'm like, it's time to go indoors.
Mhm.
So I'm also a little bit spoiled. I've spoiled myself with having the perfect environment, right? So
Mhm.
it's indoors tough to be when you are used to it.
Got you. Awesome. Yeah. And then if I can make a switch here, almost little topic switch here. The collegiate sport of pickleball right now, it's pretty much just like a couple tournaments, couple regional tournaments, and then there's like one big national one, but there's no,
Yeah.
there's no real like NCAA regulated schedule, anything like that. You just sort of have to set up scrimmages against other schools. Is there any movement, any talkings about making it a regulated college sport, at least in America?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to be a voice in that. I attended the early collegiate events in Austin, Texas, when they were hosted in Dreamland. There is nothing like collegiate pickleball, right? It's incredible. The team aspect, um, the passion that people have not only for the sport but representing their school, it's unmatched, right? Being from Utah, you know that Utah Tech and Utah State, they're always in the top 5, top 10. Utah Tech is always teeter-tottering between first and second. So we have a lot of pride when it comes to the collegiate scene. And quite honestly, it's going to take some brave universities to start mm, offering scholarships, right? I think that's going to be um, on the high school scene, we have to do a better job. We have to um, encourage high schools to um, you know make it into high school sports. I think Utah is ready and primed to do that. It took a long time for lacrosse to get to in Utah to be recognized as a high school sport. Um, but I think the movement is there, right? The transition of pickleball and the age demographics, the highest amount of rec players now is 18 to 25, and it's only getting younger, right? And so we have to do a better job of supporting our high school programs, and I think the Pickler does a great job in doing that. And there has to be some brave universities that are willing to offer scholarships. Utah Tech has done that. They offered last year two scholarships. Dylan Champagny, I always give her a shout out, but she started in our youth program, worked for us, and now when she went to Utah Tech um, and played for the club, she treated it like she was a collegiate athlete, right? She was going to school there and paying for school, but the team had regular practices. They traveled together, they raised money, but ultimately, the university, it got to the point that I think their club got to over 5,000 members, and the school had to recognize it that hey, it's time to really take this serious. Offer two scholarships, and I think other universities have to do that, and then the NCAA will pay attention and and approve the sport because I mean it has to. It's too popular. Um, I think it would drive a lot of eyeballs to TV, and I think it could be a money generator for the NCAA.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially 5,000 people on one
Yeah.
team. That's great, and maybe that's why
And,
it's
and that's their club, right? Their club got that much interest, and then they're very picky on who's on the team. But yes, there's that much interest.
yeah, maybe one reason like integrating a college system and bringing them all together to play against each other is just how uneven that would be. Because when I think about like the Michigan team, like yeah, we are nowhere near even with like the non-competitive, just sort of casual players. I don't think we're even up to like 45, 50. So against like a
And
5,000,
maybe do you guys have dedicate? I mean, where do you guys practice? Like, do you guys have a
there's
courts on
no
the campus?
there are no on-campus courts, and in fact,
Mm,
like the only place close by, it's like a 20-minute drive. A lot of people don't really have cars. And that's a far drive. I only got there
yeah.
by like, carpools. And yeah, it is really selective where, no one's coming in with like some long pickleball background and then they can only take like 10 people for a competitive team because the tournaments that are set up aren't really set up for the college. They're the same way like the pro style ones are formatted basically.
Yep.
Um,
Well, we got to change that. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Drew Brees,
yeah.
former Super Bowl champ, one of the best quarterbacks of all time. He's an ambassador, but he ended up buying the state of Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio to franchise out. So we're gonna get to
Mhm.
Michigan, right? We'll make sure, because one of the great things we love is the reason why also Utah Tech and Utah State are as good as they are is because they have access to our facilities as well, and we work with them, right? The university at Utah Tech has invested um, in the team, but also has invested in on campus courts. Some of the buildings are the rooftops have been turned into pickleball courts, and so that the student body and the team has a place to play. And we make it very dirt cheap for our universities to be able to play at our facilities, because again, you need those resources too, right? And I think once those resources are available to you and your team, Elliot, you'll see the interest go this way, but also the talent pool go this way, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I think it's on us businesses too to help you know create accessibility to the universities.
Yeah, and with you guys are stationed in Utah, correct?
That is correct. Yep.
And so maybe it's no surprise that, like, your backyard, Utah, is the, like, fastest growing, pickleball state there's been. It could just
Yeah.
because of resource availability. Do you also think there's just something, like, about
In the
Utah that,
water.
it just might lend itself to the game of pickleball? Because I'm thinking,
uh,
pickleball very I mean, by the Pickler's mission, it's a very, community-minded organization, sort of emphasizing the community structure of pickleball. And if I'm thinking of Utah, obviously, it's gonna come to mind that a lot of, like, family values are prioritized, a lot of community-minded values. Do you think, I don't know, just that Utah and community mindedness plays into their pickleball craze?
A 100%, 100%. There's definitely a strong presence of as people would call the Mormon religion. It's really emphasizes families, and so it's community driven. But I think Elliot, all across the country, everyone wants a sense of community, right?
Exactly.
And I think this is why pickleball is so popular. That the three things that the Pickler we preach are connect, dink, and compete, right?
Yeah.
Human interactions that happen because of pickleball, it's unmatched, right? There's nothing like it. I've been a part of movements and companies where you see a little bit of that, but the human interactions that happen because of pickleball are incredible. I my VP of franchising started as a volunteer. Met her husband at the Pickler. They just recently had a kid, and she now is my VP of franchising at the Pickler. Right, those are not uncommon. It's the
Mhm.
human interactions that happen, and then the dinking portion of our mission. Pickleball is meant to be fun, right? So you're on the courts, you're with your friends and family, have fun doing it. But then the competition side, I always tell people, I grew up playing sports. I grew up playing soccer, basketball, football. I don't sit at the 3-point line and shoot 3-pointers and can tell you my rating in basketball, but I can tell you
Mhm.
in pickleball, right? I will take 2 hours out of my day to practice dinking or my thirds or my fifth drop shots. Like, it's the weirdest thing. Like, as an adult man, it's like, why am I taking time out of my day to want to improve? But I love the competition side that pickleball brings out of us, and it's in our human nature to want to be competitive. And is there a better feeling than feeling the butterflies when you're going to play in a tournament? I miss the days of competition, and as an adult man with 6 kids and responsibilities, and you know I once in a while like to feel a little alive, feeling those competition juices, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I definitely say the wide appeal of pickleball and the potential of the sport because of that is pretty unmatched with any other sport. You've got the elements of, like, the things that make golf, have the broad appeal, the fact that anyone can play it, any age, any size, any sort of dimensions. And if you practice a lot, you can get good. But there are, like, obviously a lot of barriers to access for golf too,
Yeah,
that don't exist for pickleball. You don't have to pay a ton of money to show up to a park. You can just buy, like,
right.
a $20 paddle. You don't need all these clubs. So it has the sort of anyone can play it, anyone can try it, and anyone can get good at it somewhat fast, just with like hours of practice. But it's also got like the anyone can come in and play it. That sort of a
Yeah.
pickup game of basketball would have, um,
Yeah.
where it's just sort of like show up and play. Um, but yeah, let me pivot here and just ask, what would be your advice to college students aiming to turn their pickleball passions and aspirations into maybe a more competitive profession, maybe turning it into like a sport they can, I don't know, really grind out and take full time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that was always preached to me, right? That to follow your passions and in whatever profession I was in. I always try to find organizations that had great values or sold a great product, and ultimately it turned into being able to be in my passion of being in pickleball, right? But I think for me, um, follow my passion from a profession standpoint, establish a foundation, right? Understanding, I'm a enterprise sales guy by trade, that had to learn marketing as well and understanding top of funnel and campaigns and what drives people and branding, but also understanding what drives people to say yes when it comes to a sale, right? So all those foundations were based off of great companies, right? And so eventually you get to a point where you have a bigger why in your life. What truly drives you? What gets you up in the morning? What makes you come to work and it doesn't feel like work, right? And I think for me, I woke up when I was 30 years old and I was like, 30 years went like that. Like what is my legacy? What am I leaving? And it's so funny because as I started to explore, I had my midlife crisis too early, but I started to explore what is my next move and step, and how can I translate my experience to a passion. I even ran for city council, and I like middle of my campaign. I'm like, what am I doing? But I was just trying to find that wider purpose. My why, and I think ultimately when I decided, hey, you have a strong foundation. You've learned a lot of things throughout your life, not only in school, but life experiences, professional experiences. Sometimes when you decide to take a gamble on yourself and you have those foundations, the drive is there. I mean, just go for it. I tell people all the time, I think we're all meant to be entrepreneurs because we all have passions, right? And so I truly believe that you can turn your passions into, um, a lifelong career, and you know, knocking here on wood, but I want to grow this company to a nationwide company and transform people's life through the game of pickleball, and introduce thousands of people to the game. And if people have the passion to be a pro, there's a pathway for that now, right? There's money
Mhm,
to be made in the game. If you want to turn any aspect of your passion, or in your life, give yourself a shot, right? I think the first step is the scariest, but I think once you're in it and you're grinding and you're able to see the fruits of your labor, like I think that makes it all worth it.
mhm. And if you're someone that sort of has that drive and wants to take that shot, do you have any advice for sort of overcoming any butterflies that would have to do with really just risking it? Because that's really what it is. You basically have to get yourself, to go for it, especially with like an
Yeah,
entrepreneurship
yeah.
type of deal. It's a big time sink and money sink.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, Ellie, one of the big things is I surrounded myself with people not only that believe in the mission, but also, that there's people that will take chances on you, right, throughout your career. And I think the anxiety and the butterflies and the stress that comes from all this is it's natural, right?
Mhm,
It's not to say that raising money, I would never put my worst enemy through, because raising money it's a time sucker. It's consuming. It's stressful. Um, but ultimately, when you place all that energy of I've learned to embrace the anxiety and the nervousness and turn it into positive energy, and again, it just as a CEO of a fast growing company, I always ask myself, how did I get here? Right. But every day is a learning opportunity. That's why you surround yourself with people smarter than you. Right. And embrace those learning opportunities, because as individuals, continuous learning should never stop, right? And you'll get to the point when you graduate and you have a career, but you should never stop learning and growing as a professional, as an individual, as one day as a father, businessman, whatever it may be in your life. Um, Always continue to learn and grow, and I think you'll surprise yourself.
But yeah, thank you so much, George, for speaking with us today. You gave us some great advice, some awesome insight into the growing sport and also the industry side of it. And hopefully we'll see you around, and the Pickler will only
Yeah.
take even more from here.
And if you're ever in Utah, come visit us, Elliot. I'm sure I'm gonna make it to the big house soon. I'm a big Notre Dame football fan, so one of my dreams is to make it out there. So if we're ever out there, we'll sing together and let's play some pickleball.
And if you need a ticket, I got you, dude. Of
All
course.
right, I appreciate it.
For
Well, thank you
sure.
so much, Elliot. You killed it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. You killed it even more.
Thank you, thank you.